Before anything else, take a moment to look around you. Yes, literally look up from the screen or the phone for a split second, and notice how many questions, how many half-answered mysteries sit in the air every single day. If you sense even a flicker of curiosity about what's hidden beneath the political stagecraft, let that curiosity turn into action right now. Tap the subscribe button on NewsDecoded, drop a quick like so the algorithm knows you value independent digging, and pin a comment to share your own unanswered questions. Think of it as opening a collective case file that we'll keep updating together. All set? Good. Let's unravel tonight's story. The temperature in America's political greenhouse just shot past sweltering. You probably saw the post that kicked the hornet's nest, a late-night digital salvo from Donald Trump insisting an Epstein list never existed, followed in the same breath by a claim that Democrats secretly created it, so he won't release it, so everyone should just move on. That single contradictory paragraph landed like a lightning bolt. Within hours, supporters who once wore MAGA hats like second skins were live-streaming ceremonial burnings, the charred fabric held up to smartphone cameras as if it were photographic proof of betrayal. The polling firm Rasmussen, long friendly territory for the former president, reported shock at the scale of backlash. Internal memos leaked online describing it as the most intense grassroots anger they'd measured since 2016. Why the sudden eruption? To understand, we have to rewind to the origins of the so-called Epstein Files, court documents, flight logs, deposition transcripts, and photo archives tied to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. For years, those papers existed in a legal purgatory, referenced in civil suits, glimpsed in criminal indictments, but rarely exposed in full because powerful names peppered the pages. When judges finally began unsealing portions, roughly a tenth of the material surfaced. Even that sliver showed Donald Trump in guest registries, call logs, and deposition notes. Mar-a-Lago appeared repeatedly as a recruitment ground where Maxwell scouted vulnerable teens, including Virginia Giuffre, then a 17-year-old changing towels poolside. That background matters because it means any promise to release everything is inevitably a promise to reveal more about Trump himself. Fast forward to this year's political carnival. Influencers aligned with the former president took selfies on the White House driveway holding thick binders labeled Epstein Files. Phase 1. Triumphantly predicting publication within weeks. Trump's acting attorney general, Pam Bondi, embarked on a friendly media tour declaring the files were on my desk, ready for daylight. Conservative forums buzzed with anticipation, and then, silence. Weeks stretched into months. Skeptics warned the pledge would evaporate, yet even they didn't expect Trump to declare the whole archive non-existent after teasing its release. That rhetorical whiplash explains why Musk, never shy about poking rivals, jabbed on social media. 6 references to Epstein in a single post while telling people to stop asking. Just publish already. The tweet racked up millions of impressions and poured salt into an already raw wound. Meanwhile, inside the conservative media ecosystem, the ex-president needed a safe harbor. Only one host volunteered, Lara Trump. Cameras rolled in an interview that felt more like a self-hug than journalism. She lobbed supersized compliments. Some call you the bodyguard of Western civilization, and teed up softballs about cabinet-building prowess. Yet keen-eyed viewers noticed an unflattering optical contrast, Lara towering in her chair, while Trump appeared shrunken, a visual metaphor many couldn't ignore. The segment attempted to steer the narrative away from Epstein to grand legacy questions. How would Trump like history to remember him? But on forums previously loyal to Trump, users hammered a single demand underneath the video: release the files. While that media spin cycle churned, another subplot unfolded on the ground. Ohio Senator turned vice presidential hopeful J.D. Vance spent the summer hopping California's coast, San Diego craft breweries, Anaheim's Disneyland, selfies on Tom Sawyer Island, even as the administration blasted California as a lawless zone. The optics were awkward. California's own governor, faced with torrential flooding in Texas, nonetheless dispatched K-9 rescue teams to aid Greg Abbott. Politically, that show of interstate solidarity undercut rhetoric, painting blue states as enemies. To many swing voters, it highlighted leadership contrasts, measured cooperation versus grievance-powered press conferences. The Epstein controversy also intersects with broader concerns about government competence. Remember the holiday weekend when 85% of calls to FEMA's disaster hotline went unanswered? The closure of regional centers, deep staffing cuts, and a leadership reshuffle left storm-stricken communities in the dark. Meteorologists sounded alarms, citing critical vacancies at the National Weather Service. In one muddled briefing, the president riffed about floodwaters 60 feet high, like a wave surfers wouldn't dare, leaving residents wondering whether federal response plans were built on data or metaphor. Each misstep chips away at public trust, and every chipped fragment adds weight to demands for transparency around the Epstein archive. Trust is also an economic variable. Exhibit A: Las Vegas. Tourism analysts project international arrivals to Nevada have cratered by nearly 40%, with Canadian visitors, a historically reliable segment, staying away in droves. Middle-class travelers at home face sticker shock from tariffs and airfare spikes, prompting what hotel insiders fear will become a long slump. At 5.5%, Nevada's unemployment now ranks worst in the nation, a statistic local papers directly link to dwindling convention bookings. The city famous for reinvention is bracing for layoffs, and that anxiety spills over into political sentiment. When day-to-day finances tighten, tolerance for stonewalling at the highest levels plummets. North of the border, Canada's government reads the same tea leaves. Deputy Prime Minister turned Industry Minister Melanie Joly announced a pivot toward Europe, framing it bluntly, "While the U.S. weakens, we will diversify." It's more than rhetoric. Ottawa and Brussels signed a fast-track defense and industry pact less than 2 weeks ago, aiming to streamline supply chains that sidestep Washington gridlock. For allies accustomed to American reliability, sealed court files feed a narrative of a nation distracted by its own secrets, too consumed by scandal to honor long-term commitments. Inside those secrets lie photographs countless observers suspect are explosive. Author Michael Wolff, who has written penetrating but controversial portraits of Trump, recounted Epstein's habit of producing a dozen or so party snapshots, girls topless, perched on the mogul's lap, giggling teenager pointing at an embarrassing stain on tailored slacks. Wolff claims he saw the prints with his own eyes while interviewing Epstein in Palm Beach. Handlers warned him never to utter the financier's name in Trump's presence, or the interview would end on the spot. When the FBI raided Epstein's Manhattan mansion, agents drilled open a locked safe, but the Bureau's chain of custody inventory remains redacted. Somewhere, perhaps in an evidence vault, perhaps not, those images could still exist, silent but radioactive. Pressure from Capitol Hill is intensifying. Representative Ro Khanna announced plans to force a public vote compelling release of every Epstein document in federal possession, vowing to put each colleague on record. Senator Brian Schatz endorsed the move in a curt post that read, "Very likely exactly what it looks like. Bipartisan? Not yet. But libertarian-leaning Republicans signal they're uncomfortable watching a White House, any White House, dictate which parts of a scandal stay buried." Against that backdrop, how does the former president attempt damage control? By leaning into superlatives. He sees himself as the lone savior of a nation allegedly teetering on collapse. Yet his words no longer land in a vacuum. Each distortion, each half-truth, ricochets around an information sphere that fact-checks in real time. When he dubs legitimate inquiries evil, survivors of government delay respond with personal stories and timestamps. When he calls criticism un-American, veterans in disaster zones upload footage of empty shelters and unmanned call centers. The digital commons might be chaotic, but it is stubbornly unconvinced by denial. Here's why that matters. Public memory is welding the Epstein narrative, the FEMA stumbles, the economic jitters, and the diplomatic drift into a single frame, a leadership culture allergic to accountability. Pollster after pollster finds that trust, not ideology, now ranks as voters' top concern. They crave a government that levels with them, even about ugly facts. Ironically, releasing the full Epstein collection could inoculate the administration against at least one strand of doubt. Instead, the current posture feeds conspiracy theorists on both extremes. Without daylight, rumor multiplies. For the families directly harmed by Epstein's crimes, every delay reopens wounds. They have waded through indictments, plea deals, a suspicious jail death, and a pandemic. They have endured internet trolls weaponizing their trauma for partisan memes. They deserve clarity, and the country deserves to know whether people entrusted with power stood by, participated, or intervened. History shows cover-ups often metastasize into bigger scandals than the original misconduct. Watergate's break-in mattered. Its obstruction toppled a presidency. So where does this leave us? Picture a bonfire of burnt red caps spreading through neighborhoods once considered safely loyal. Imagine independents, already wary of entrenched elites, watching billionaires and politicians volley blame back and forth. Think of allies recalibrating defense pacts because Washington can't release court files without an internal turf war. That is the cost of secrecy. We are, however, not spectators chained to the bleachers. In a democracy, pressure from the ground up shapes outcomes. If the White House won't publish, Congress can subpoena. If Congress stalls, states can sue for transparency. If institutions falter, journalists pry. And if the story fades, it only does so because voters decide other matters outrank the quest for truth. That choice is ours to make, day after day. As for NewsDecoded, our commitment is simple. Follow the documents, follow the patterns, and keep explaining how each revelation or refusal ripples into ordinary lives. That means examining economic data side by side with political rhetoric, drilling into legal filings, and inviting experts who challenge our assumptions. Some episodes will leave us furious, others hopeful, but none indifferent. Because indifference is the oxygen cover-ups need to thrive. You've just navigated a dense thicket of facts, claims, and context, roughly 20 minutes of mental cardio. If your pulse is up, that's good. It means you're alive to the stakes. Now channel that alertness. Smash the like button before your screen dims, tag someone who still thinks the Epstein archive is a footnote, and start a thread downstairs in the comments with one question you want NewsDecoded to chase next. Subscribing isn't just a courtesy, it's your seat at the briefing table, and every newcomer strengthens the collective push for sunlight. This is NewsDecoded, where buried truths don't stay buried. Until the next deep dive, stay curious, stay vocal, and keep asking for the files.